All right. Well, folks, welcome back to the Zen Meathead podcast. Got my lovely friend Beth Arnold here with us today. We've been trying to get her on forever, and she has flat denied until just recently she brought something to our attention. As our listenership is increasing, we're out of just friends and family now. We've got people all over the world listening, and a lot of those folks know nothing about who Sarah or I am, why we're doing this, what we're about. So Beth's idea was that she wanted to interview both of us separately and then ultimately together, just so people can kind of get a little bit of background on who we are and what we're about. So I'm going to hand over the reins. You are in control, Beth. Yeah.
Most excellent.
Let's do this.
Okay, so this is for you all to get to know them. And I wrote some questions out for them that I thought would be helpful. I have known Chris and Sarah for, I think we figured out 20 years, maybe 15.
It's at least 15, probably closer to 20, yeah.
So I've seen young Chris to now Chris, and same with Sarah. So this is the questions I'm going to ask are based on like what I think that you all should know about him. So first of all, okay, so from an early on age, again, I met you, I think you were 20 something.
Probably mid-20s.
Mid-20s. And so one of this, and I know things about you, but one of the very surprising things about you is I was sitting in your office and you had a picture of your mom and, you know, with her, you know, she's a music teacher, and you said that you played classical music, and I just about fell off my chair based on what I knew about you at the time. So that was like, oh my gosh, there is more to this person than what he likes people to think about him. And there's more depth. So it's like, aside from that, I mean, you can talk about that, but what is one surprising thing that you want the listeners to know?
I think the music is one that's not commonly known. I met you at Microsoft, obviously, and as soon as I was at Microsoft, music pretty much fell off the radar. But growing up in the Beatty household, music was held under incredibly high regard. It was education and music were non-optional. So everybody had to start playing. I don't even remember starting to play the viola. Like my first memories, I already played. And you had to play through high school. So I picked the viola, much to my chagrin. Playing the viola at that age group does not make you more popular or help you get dates or any of that stuff. But yes, I did play, I guess at a semi-professional level. I did play in local symphonies. And until Microsoft, I was probably going to make a living out of it. I was just starting to teach. Wedding gigs and all that kind of stuff were actually pretty fruitful. Like time to money was really high. And most of that stuff I'd been playing my whole life. So it was easy and it produced money. And it was a cool part of my life. And I miss it. But on the same note, you know, yeah, at some point I made a life choice and deviated away from music, but it's still something I hold dear, and actually just recorded my mom playing a solo with the Esquire Philharmonic just about a week ago. So I'm a musician.
That's amazing. Okay, so before I get to my next question, I kind of want to, okay, so let's kind of talk more about that. So you were going to go into music. What made you get into the tech industry?
I have horrible ADD that was undiagnosed until actually early on in my Microsoft career. So school was incredibly trying for me unless I was fascinated with the subject. And as a young tyke, I had a very limited palette of interests, and that was video games / computers, cars, and girls. Like that was pretty much all I was really, really interested in. So by virtue of video games and ruining computers in my household, and my dad having to like go to some poor tech shop and scream at somebody because I didn't know what I was doing and I was screwing it up, I naturally started to learn a little bit about it. And then a friend of my older sister's was the manager at the local Comp USA working in the tech shop. And
Comp USA.
No longer here. I don't know if they're still around.
I don't think so. But.
I don't think so. Not here. But he brought me in because he knew I could do basic stuff. I could install video cards. I could install memory. And he basically took me under his wing and taught me and sent me through all kinds of trainings. And I got just overwhelmed and fascinated. And on top of that, it became very clear that the money in tech at that time was shocking. You know, I'm 16, 18, 19, you know, making $20+ an hour, it was good stuff. And then that just through a few little steps, I landed as a contract game tester at Microsoft in the late 90s, right after high school. And that launched my tech career right there at Microsoft.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a crazy journey.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we sort of touched on it, but what did you want to be when you were little? What did you want to be when you were growing up? And then what was like when you're younger? I hope that this is what my life is like.
Okay, so let's break that down. What did I want to be when I grew up? My dad and my brother were both law enforcement and military. So at a very young age, I had this superhero complex. I'm 4, 5, 6 years old, and my brother and my dad are kind of built like me. They're bigger guys, and I thought they were completely unstoppable. They carried guns and they were badasses. So that was really appealing to me. And I've always had a thing with woodworking as well. I don't know that I had a huge. It was maybe a cop, maybe in the Army, maybe a police officer. I think it was a lot of and I was obsessed with tractors too. Construction might have been something. I think I had a lot of the classic little boy superhero desires. Like I want to build stuff or I want to help people. So a lot of those types of things.
What did you hope? I hope my life is like this. Like I was growing up, I'm going to live in Seattle. And I live in Snohomish, by the way. But you know what I mean? So it's what did you think back then?
I honestly was more focused on the experience. I was more interested in being happy. I enjoyed, outside of a lot of the bullying and bullshit, I really enjoyed my childhood with my family. So, road trips, camping, hunting trips, enough money in the bank to have a house, have a family, maybe, go on a vacation once in a while. I didn't have dreams of being a billionaire or anything. I had my eyes set on a pretty humble life.
So I want to talk more about that a little bit. So again, like I mentioned earlier, digging deeper into you than what you wanted people to think you were, or how you portrayed yourself. That's was part of the thing. It was okay, I'm really the first time I met you was that, a happy hour, and everybody, all your friends warned me about you and what they said about you, and you walked in and I was like, okay, game on, let's, see what's going to happen with this person. And we had a good banter, whatever. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn this person and get to know you more. And so I would, and the thing that was awesome, it was great and sad at the same time. And you've had, over the years, I've had many conversations about this. You're like, no one ever asked me to get to know me. No one ever asked those questions. They just assumed I was going to be this. So I was just playing the part.
Yeah.
And that was sad at one hand, because I feel oh my gosh, there's this great person right here. And then when you're talking about CompUSA, someone took the time to guide me.
Yeah.
That's what's so great, because you are that person. People are drawn to you if they just stop and take the time and forget about what the persona was of Chris. That's not who you are, really.
No, not at all.
So how did you deal with that back then? I know we've had conversations about, you're that's just, I'm going to live up my persona or whatever. But deep down, really, what would you you were what were you dying to if people only just do this, really?
I was so horrifically insecure at the time and had such terrible imposter syndrome. I barely graduated from high school because I couldn't stay focused. I end up at Microsoft. I'm surrounded by PhDs and the best of the best. And I'm who the fuck am I to be here with this crowd? So I think for a long time, honestly, I was completely numb and blind. I was in survival mode. Once they got my ADD diagnosed and got me on medication, that helped a lot with my focus. But I had unknowingly, fun fact for folks, undiagnosed folks with ADD, if you know somebody who drinks excessively or smokes pot excessively, there's a high likelihood that they have undiagnosed ADD and they're just trying to get their mind to calm down. So for the longest time, I wasn't aware of it. And I was just kind of looking at people in the organization that were successful and trying to model my behaviors after theirs. And the rest of the time I was fucking terrified and lonely. So getting drunk and being the party boy that's what everybody thought. And it was like, cool, it worked well. And as a 20-something-year-old man, I've always got money in my pocket. I'm always happy to buy drinks for people. I'm, the life of the party. On the outside, it's a ton of fun. It was like a super cool place to be. I didn't realize at that time, though, fast forward 10 years, and a lot of the stuff that I was bearing and not dealing with was going to come to light, and it was going to be a real painful transition into growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were your early influences, and have any of those stayed the same? So you kind of touched on like your dad and your brother, but was there any other people or influences?
Yeah. Obviously, like I said, my family in general, we've had a really tight knit family. We stick together even when we're scratching each other up a little bit. I think the first like really influential person in my life that really sticks out to me is actually my brother-in-law. My sister married a man named Michael Allen, ironically, because my brother's name is Michael Allen. Last name is Giller. But at that time, my mom was playing with Seattle Symphony. My father was the undersheriff in Chelan County. So he was gone during the week. So I was being raised, my brother was off to the military. I'm being raised by my mom and my sisters, 12 to 15, whatever, hormones, just spaz problems. I'm having all kinds of issues fitting in. And here comes Michael. He's just, this super kind of just chill, hippie, older guy who's dating my sister. And he saw it happening, and he just like latched onto me, and like he'd come and get me, and we'd go out, and play racquetball. He taught me to drive stick. He walked me through all kinds of like, tumultuous relationships. Like, he was just somebody who was there who like invested in me and believed in me. And he's stuck around, and that really modeled for me the type of people that I really seek out in my life, the people that I see them investing in me, I'm investing in return. And it's really about the betterment of everybody. And he's been the archetype my whole life of like people that I seek out to look up to and to, make myself better.
That's cool. So I was going to, along those lines too, it's like, I know, like, I sound like a proud mom. But it's true. One of the proudest things that I was so happy for you or in your career, when you finally realized, okay, some of the things I'm doing or the people I'm with aren't really that great for me.
Yeah.
These aren't the good influences. And I don't have imposter syndrome. And you made that shift. And as soon as I saw you make that shift, your career and everything just skyrocketed. And it was so great. I was so happy for you. And it's continued on. Once you realized that, what do you think it was that made you realize that?
What made the shift? I think it was just, honestly, as silly as it sounds, like pattern recognition. We worked in these giant organizations, and you'd get to know these people, and you'd watch some people that just continually climb and excel, and certain people that seemed brilliant would tend to top out. And when you started to like really nitpick in, you'd find there was something about them. Maybe they're rude and aggressive in meetings. Maybe they really don't know what they're talking about as well as they report to. I just started to recognize some of the false actors, and I recognized that I was following a lot of the false actors. I think that was when the glimmer of the reality started to set in of like, oh, like I'm making choices in my behaviors and my associations, and they have long-term ramifications, positive or negative. And it's really hard when you've got really close people in your life that all of a sudden you recognize like, oh, it's not that these people are bad people. It's just like, I'm on a different path. Like this is no longer working for me. So that was it's still an ongoing lesson, I think. I'm a lot more aware these days of like, really, like you said, getting to know people, because like it's really easy to put on a face and be shiny and happy and whatever, but to meet somebody who has depth, that genuinely cares and is interested in investing and being there. Those people are a little more rare than I think folks realize.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing too, that you touched on, when you recognized it and that you wanted to go on a different path, you realize the value of, I'm just going to say, the good representations or the good people, right? And then you started being that role model for people. Yeah. And again, it just amplified you in your career. So, and relationships are very, very important to you, as they are to me. And you struggled a lot, I remember. And sometimes, right now, with those, when you had to make that shift and leave some of those folks behind.
Yeah.
And so you want to talk a little about, you don't have to talk specifics, but like, how did you deal with it then? I mean, I know obviously, but like, what guidance would you give people that has to make that, okay, call one way or the other?
It comes back to so many lessons from my parents that like at the time I hated, but they rang so true as I got older. And one of them was, you are who you hang out with, your 4 or 5 closest friends. So if you have, you need to stop your life. What do I want to accomplish? I had aspirations at one point at Microsoft of making it to being a senior vice president. That was kind of my goal in my head. But you do have to quickly recognize the people who are doing the right stuff for the right reasons. And if they're not, it's not that you have to completely, disavow people, but, stay aligned and tuned into the energy. If you surround yourself with, people who live on life on the edge, paycheck to paycheck, smoking, drinking, partying, and that's your 5 closest friends, guess who you are? If you're hanging out with, tech magnates that are at the bleeding edge of technology and whatnot, you are more likely to be seen as one of those people. The advice to younger folks is like, be aware of who you're investing a lot of time in, and be careful with that because it can most certainly tarnish your reputation.
Yeah. I'm just going to correct you on one thing. When you said to younger folks, it's to any folks.
That's a good point.
Even folks my age, 53, at any age, it's good guidance.
Oh, absolutely. I guess I always get a little weird about, I had the same thing at Microsoft. I guess it's back to imposter syndrome. Speaking to people that are older than me, it's like, you have more life experience than I do. Like you obviously already know this, but I guess that's the reality. I learn new stuff every day. We all do.
I do, even today. Okay. So we've talked about this already a little bit, about your journey and your growth. And again, advice to the folks out there listening. When it came down to it, why did you want to make the change and pivot? I know you already touched on it, but I'll just take it a step further. If you didn't make the change or pivot, what was at risk?
I was going to continue being who I was. I was on a path to mediocrity. My body was falling apart. I wasn't happy with my life. The quality of my relationships was garbage. I was at a nice place in life in terms of, the money I was making and this and that, but it's like the quality, and depth of relationships that I had were often fairly surface layer. And I really struggled to keep true quality depth relationships going. Between that, like I said, and the body suffering, I just knew something had to change. Like I was going to be in an Alcoholics Anonymous program. Like I was headed down a dark path. And I saw it coming, and thankfully, but I mean, I watched a lot of friends crash and burn. And a lot of those were cautionary tales, that helped me to kind of like, oh, you got to wake up, dude. Like, if this is what you want, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want something different, you're going to have to make some changes. And up front, they're probably not going to be sexy, shiny fun. They're probably going to be painful and a lot of work. You just got to, when you're ready to make the change, you dig in and you do the work.
So to elaborate more on that, so you made another pivot recently to this.
Yeah.
And so, and a very strong, I would say like a life coach path, right?
It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And, like you said, bettering your health, fitness, and this podcast. What made you want to, because let's be honest, you were like hardcore tech, right?
Yeah. Was my life.
So what made you, again, make the pivot to this? And like, again, for the audience out there, what were your fears and, areas of opportunity? But what ultimately made you like, okay, the highlights, I'm sorry, I'm corporate speak right now.
Oh, you're good.
The highlights outweighed, or did they outweigh the risks, areas of opportunities?
Boy. The last couple of positions in big tech I was in, I found myself doing this sine wave, this yo-yo pattern of dieting where I'd get in, I'd learn the people, the institution, the tools, get really entrenched, and then I'd just be bored. Really what it came down to is it was a passion and a career for me for the majority of my life. And I'm in a weird transitionary stage where I'm not saying that it's not anymore. I'm still fascinated with it and interested in it. But I'm at a point in my life where I recognize that my time is my most valuable commodity. And I'm interested in focusing on what really sings to my heart. And especially as, I've been aging, I've been watching all of our friends age. We've watched some folks die. We've watched, people fall apart completely. And I've always been kind of in the background, like a nerd about health and fitness. I recognize that because of all the work that I've done, because of all the work Sarah and I have done, and the, trying something new, falling down, standing up again, we learned a lot of the shortcuts and the tricks and the hacks along the way and really simplified it down. And the handful of people we've worked with and then experimenting on ourselves, you see the dramatic improvement in quality of life. It's not just about like, hey, I'm proud of how my body looks. It's like, hey, I sleep better. I think better. My internal monologue is no longer beating me up and telling me, how I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. That makes my heart sing. Is like, we've had this huge level of success. And I'm not saying we have it all figured out, but we've got a pretty good pattern that leads to a spot. And I'm really, it was time to take a risk. There was enough money in the bank. I've been talking about doing this for 10, 12 years. Honestly, this is Sarah's fault. She, about a year ago, she was just like, just fucking do it. Just buy the gear, like start doing this thing, like either figure out that it's going nowhere or like, let's make something out of this. And it's rapidly growing legs of its own. I still may go back to big tech. I'm still looking for work. But I'm really interested in making sure that the work that I do aligns with my passion, and it absolutely cannot sacrifice my quality time with my family. It's like the days of 60, 80, 100-hour weeks and, weekends and fire drills. It's just like, nope, thanks. Mm-hmm. Find somebody else. Like, I'm just not doing it.
I think, obviously there's going to be a lot of takeaways from this, but I think one cool takeaway from this little interview, getting to know you, is it doesn't matter where you are in life or what age, you can constantly reinvent yourself. It's
scary as hell.
It's scary, but you're a good example of this. Keep reinventing, try.
Yeah.
It's all going to be okay.
Yeah. Donna Sarkar, who we interviewed a while ago, a good friend of ours, she talked a lot about imposter syndrome, did a TEDx talk on all that. She talks a lot about collecting dots or doing experiments. So she was part of the initial kick to get the podcast going too, where she was like, just do an experiment. Just like record 3 episodes, see what you think. You collect a dot. Either it's great and you want to push forward, or it's crap and you tried it and now. Like, cool. It's just, you learned something. This has definitely been challenging though. Going from, especially as we like to call it in the industry, the golden handcuffs. Big tech pays, millionaires aren't being minted every night anymore. But you can live a very cozy upper class lifestyle. And if you do it right, punch on a clock 40 hours a week. And if that really like rings your bell and does everything, it's a freaking spectacular place to be. But I want a little bit more. I think I've got something to offer. So
You absolutely do. Okay. When making decisions in your younger self to now, you had non-negotiables throughout, right? Are they the same or are they different now?
Completely different.
And why? And how?
I think it comes back to, again, I don't want to use the word scarcity. There's a survival mindset versus an abundance mindset. Probably till well in my mid 30s, even late 30s, I was chronically overspending, overextending myself. I was just in panic mode all the time. I was just trying to make things fit because, FOMO, like I wanted to do everything with everybody. I wanted to be on the boat. I wanted to go camping. I wanted to go hunting. I wanted to work. I wanted to get that next career level bump. I had all these aspirations. I didn't even really have the energy to stop and think. I mean, I had a basic moral compass, don't kill people, don't philander the neighbor's wife, these kinds of things, obviously. But beyond that, I didn't have a whole lot of like forward thinking. It was very reactionary and momentary, and it was very pleasure driven. Yeah. Now it's completely different. Everything is measured out. Like I have like a hierarchy of needs, if you will, where it's just like, look, my family comes first. This is the most important thing. So anything that I do that doesn't include my family, the first question I get into is like, okay, what's the value proposition of this? Mm-hmm. I'm taking 3 hours or a day away from my family to do what? For whom? Like, is this a good investment of my time and the things that are important to me? So yeah, it really comes down to, I struggle with it because it sounds greedy or self-centered, but it's like, I'm really making a practice of focusing on me first, because if I'm well slept, I'm taking care of myself, all this, I have so much more to give to my family, to my friends, to people that I run in on the streets. When I'm, running day hours on Adderall and night hours on booze, my body's a mess. I have very little to offer, and the quality of what I have to offer is significantly traumatized. So yeah, I've gotten really intentional about really thinking everything through these days. What does it cost for time? What does it cost for the family?
Yeah. And also I think it's really important too, to note that when you met Sarah had a very young daughter. And as you saw things evolving with Sarah, you realized, oh my gosh, I need to be responsible for myself, Sarah, and a little person. Now they're not a little person anymore, they're 18, but you had to be responsible for someone else.
That was a very dramatic, very rapid change from barfly playboy to tech guy to stepdad. And her father was out of the picture for the first couple of years entirely. So like I said, I was accustomed to going to the bar every night. I got done with work and I might go to the gym ahead of time, but then I was going to the bar. And, but yeah, I always ran, like I said, my finances, I was always in negatives. So all of a sudden I am considering, I'm like, because I was just like, look, I got tons of friends. I could couch surf if I needed to, but I make good money. Like I can always afford to rent an apartment. I'll be fine. But like you said, the second this little one was in the mix, I was like, oh. And like all of a sudden I was aware of my role as like an example. And I think anybody who knew me in my 20s would recognize that I was a great example as a cautionary tale. So
not what to do.
No, yeah. Yeah, we had friends that their kids grew up with don't do what Uncle Chris does, which was good advice. But yeah, Emma really changed things up dramatically for me.
Yeah,
I think
it's good
parenthood is something that
it's hard.
I mean, it's hard, but it's also like looking back now as she's getting ready to take off to college. It's like I'm bummed. I'm like, really like. I know there was times when she's 5 and 6 and running around the house with her hair on fire and screaming and drawing on walls and all that, like, But looking back, it's like some of my best memories, my best times,
Okay, then we're getting into what are you most proud of?
How I showed up for this family, honestly. It took a long time. It took a lot of patience. A lot of patience on a lot of folks. Yeah. It was time for me to grow up. And I lived by that mantra, like, you can get older, but you never have to grow up. At some point, and I think it was, some of these false idols, I started to see some of these, men in their 40s, 50s, 60s. Sure, they're, okay looking. They've got a bunch of money in the bank, this and that, but like they're chasing 20-year-olds. And so number one, as now a father and having a daughter, that really changed my perspective on things. Mm-hmm. And on top of it, shortly after we met, I dated a girl. I'm going to use the moniker Xbox was her name, who was like 10 years younger than me. And that was just a 10-year age difference. So she was 19 or 20 and I was 29, I think. We had so little in common. And that was a 10-year age gap. Her closest memories are high school. I have owned multiple cars. I own a home. I have a boat. I have a career. I have a 401k. I can't even imagine, you're 45, you're 50, like hanging out with a 25-year-old. It's like, I mean, if you guys have that same attraction, like you guys do, you're adults. That's great. But I don't see a quality relationship really spinning out if you can't be life partners and be on the same page together, or at least close.
Yeah. The funniest thing I remember there's a lot of funny things that I have together, but I remember we were having a conversation and I just remember like the bikini baristas, right? And as Emma got older and things, you were going by and you realize, oh my gosh, I went by one of those and I saw somebody that Emma went to school with and I was like, oh my God, I used to be that dirty.
Oh my.
And I was like, and you were like, no more. I get it now.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it is incredible to me how much that changed my perspective. Like I was never creepy about, under 18 type stuff, but still like in my 20s, I would have preached to that was my goal. Yeah. At 40, I was going to meet myself a nice little 25 to 29-year-old, ambitious young woman. We were going to get married, pop out a few kids, and boom, that's life. That's a wrap. And here I am, super duper interested in not having a relationship and just partying and getting laid, basically. And in walks an older woman with a child. Absolutely not on my radar at all. And yeah, that hook went in quick and deep.
That was just funny. I was like, oh, this is great. Anyways. Okay. So when you look at past, I won't call them mistakes because
learning opportunities
and regrets, same kind of thing. They shape who you, I always ask people about past and things. And you know me, I always ask questions because I'm fascinated by people. And it's part of who you are, so it helps, I'll just say, me understand that person and why they react to whatever they do, right? So how did you learn to make the shifts from, because we've had conversation like, oh, I really messed up there, that's a mistake, whatever. But over the years, you have shifted your mind thinking and be like, okay, that's a learning opportunity. Something that makes who I am. I'm not proud of it necessarily, but this is how I'm going to turn it into
a positive.
So what would be your advice to folks out there in those situations?
Man, I think the hardest part with those types of situations is identifying them, like recognizing and addressing that you have a problem or something you want to change. But I think that you used a very specific word there that I think is really important that I only discovered a handful of years ago, but it is mindset or reframing your mindset. If you, let's say you're trying to quit drinking, or slow down your drinking. If, you think about having a drink, you immediately give in, you head to the bar, and then you spend the next 3 hours getting drunk and berating yourself about how you're such a fucking loser and you have no self-control. Like, if you had a friend talking to you like that, how many more times are you going to hang out with them before you're like, wow, you're abusing the shit out of me? Like, I was looking for some support. But by reframing, like you said, changing that mindset to be like, okay, my goals are to be, or are like to live until I'm 90 years old and be like a pro golfer. Well, I know that alcohol is terrible for my body and my diet and all these, like it just screws up everything. It's horrible. So it's not in alignment with where I want to be. Now I just have to make a choice about it. If you've got a really clear, I guess that's what it is. I never had a port that I was headed to. As soon as you know where you want to get to, you can start to build that plan back. You know, what are the habits that I need to exhibit? What are the things I need to learn? What are the things that I need to modify to help me get there faster? So yeah, really it comes back to that internal voice, you know, if you're telling yourself what a loser you are, you probably are, unfortunately.
Yep.
And you will be until you stop telling yourself that.
That is true. And you know, the funny thing when you talked about that, you say this to me all the time. Like I'll say stuff and you're like, what would you say if a friend was saying this to them? Oh, no. And you're like, say it back to yourself. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, good point. It's hard. It's a hard mirror to your face.
You have to like just practice it over. Like those are the types of things where I get into it, like I almost gamify it. I'll start catching myself and like, no, like correct it, like fix it on the spot. You know, eventually it becomes a habit and you just, all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, oh, my self-talk is really positive and weird.
Yeah.
Things are just happening in my life a whole lot more easily.
You're like, huh, funny.
Yeah. Weird coincidence.
Yeah. That's so funny. Okay. Final question.
All right.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Legacy. I don't know that I have aspirations for legacy.
So let me ask you in a different way. I do this at work, like when people like, you know, retired or whatever. What do you want people to remember? Like,
how do you want to be remembered? I want to be the guy that lit up the room, and not so much because it's that I want to be remembered that way. It's because I learned early on that you can, as I love to say, infect people with positivity. If I walk into a meeting room where shit is off the rails, everybody's pissed off and overworked, and I come in like, we're fucked, you know, I'm just adding fuel to a fire. But if I come in with a big smile, like, hey, yeah, like we dropped the ball on this one, like, cool, like let's get to work. We're engineers. Like, how are we going to fix this? Like, we learned something. Let's move forward. It's a completely different change. So I would love to see people really take that on, you know, smile, be nice to people, even if they're being assholes. Like, look, you know, maybe somebody's mom's dying or they have chronic illness. You don't know what people are going through. You know, these days, like anxiety and stress seem to, for whatever reason, just be ramping through the roof. So a lot of people are really struggling. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Be awesome, you know, just life is a whole lot nicer when you're nice to people, you think the best of people, you don't talk shit about people. It spreads, you know, you just increase the EQ of society. So if people take anything from me, it would be like, hey, yeah, like you should be like nice and excited and happy like that guy.
The cool thing is that I want to make sure we recognize, as you said, you want to be the guy that lied the room. Now, 12 plus years ago, the way you would say, I want to be the guy that lied the room because I'm a fun party guy, right? But you have grown so much, you're like, I want to be the light of the room that, you know, it suits positivity. And see, that's so great that I think people should really know about you too. It's like you did have this different persona, but the you that you are now was there.
Yeah.
He was there, and everyone that really got to know you and loved you for who you were and not the party guy, we've all tried to bring that out, and it came out, right? So it's like, yay!
Took a lot of people and a lot of work.
But you know, you have, like you always say too. Everyone always says you have to realize it yourself, and when you're ready to make that change, you make that change.
Yep.
But I just want to say, I see you, I recognize you over the years, and I'm just like, yay! I'm so happy for you.
I appreciate it.
But I'm like, thank you for letting me interview you because this is so great.
Yes. We'll get Sarah in here next. Then we'll do a final thing. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and call it out. I'm going to say it. So for folks listening, we recorded this episode 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are re-recording just my section, and I will, at a later date, release portions of the first interview.
You were fine. You were fine.
I rambled, and it was such an insight into the way my mind works. I just got into these stream of consciousness rants, and like you'd be like, you know, what's the most influential thing that ever happened in your life? Like, I like purple dinosaurs. I listened to it. I was just like, Oh no. So I do want to release it so people, almost everybody I talk to the first time, they're like, I'm so freaking nervous. I'm like, dude, we're just having a conversation with some microphones. Chill out.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I was super nervous too. And then I forgot the questions and just rambled on. And
You answered them fine, but you got to be comfortable. I get it.
but yes, we will get this all chopped up and out to you guys soon. So much peace and love.
Okay, everyone. We are here with the lovely Sarah. We're continuing on from the interview of getting to know Chris and Sarah because I felt that it was really important that you all get to really know them because they don't have a biography on their site.
We're working on it, I swear.
And if you listen to my interview with Chris, I've known Chris a little bit longer than Sarah, but it's been a long time since I've known them both, and I've seen them on their journeys. And so, again, like I said earlier, makes me feel like a proud parent because I am significantly older than both of them.
Well, and you were there when we met, so.
Yes, I'm going to get into that later. Okay, so same questions that I asked Chris.
Aha.
So what I would like for people to know is the early age of Sarah.
Oh.
Because what I found, like what I pointed out with Chris, it's a surprising fact, was classical music. Now with you is all of your various jobs and your volunteering, which I think is so amazing and exciting. So,
Which, about the classical music, I played violin for
well, there we
many
go.
years too. So, there's that nexus as well.
Okay.
My jobs and my volunteering?
Yeah, like the cool, yeah.
One of the big ones that's pretty interesting is I was in a search and rescue organization for a number of years back in Spokane, Spokane Regional Search and Rescue.
Yay.
I was actually on the board of directors, which was kind of crazy. So it goes back even farther than that, but I have, as you know, probably a little bit of a superhero complex, maybe
Yes.
a little bit of an adrenaline junkie thing going on. And what's interesting about it is I think it comes from when I was probably, 15, 16, 17. I haven't been able to nail down a time frame. My little sister had her first grand mal seizure. And I was the only one that's home. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. And I had no idea what to do. And we were sitting in the living room watching TV, and she was holding a glass of orange juice. And then all of a sudden, the orange juice went flying everywhere, and I thought she was messing with me. And so I was like, what are you doing? And then I saw that she was seizing, and I was completely panicked and completely helpless. And I had no idea what to do. And I ended up having to run next door to our neighbor and ask her to help. And it really left me feeling not broken, but I didn't ever want to end up in a situation again where I didn't know what to do in an emergency. And so a lot of the things that I've done over my lifetime in that kind of arena have been around making sure that I know that I can perform in like panic situations, like crisis situations. So I was a lifeguard and a swim instructor and actually had a couple saves doing that. I was on funny enough, I was looking to become a volunteer firefighter. And my boyfriend at the time, who became my first husband, said, it's too dangerous. Basically, talked me out of it. And my compromise was looking into search and rescue. And so there's a funny story around how that happened, but I ended up finding the Spokane Regional Search and Rescue and got involved in that and worked through the system, ended up actually learning how to train my black lab, Rasta, to be a search dog. She was amazing. She could clear an 80-acre area of anybody in it. She could find a diver under 12 feet of water.
Amazing.
It was incredible. And yeah, it really stems from just wanting to make sure that I don't freeze if I need to not freeze. But yeah, it's kind of been a lifelong journey that has manifested in a bunch of different ways. So
the cool thing about this too, another thing too, that we joke about a lot is Sarah is more of the guy than Chris. 'Cause, yeah, more of the car. Sarah's more of the guy. But anyways, I want to touch on something you said about your superhero. So a lot of people, when they first meet you, myself included, is Sarah, as I talk, she's not here. You're very guarded, and you come up is very strong, very tough.
yep.
Which there is, like we always say, where's Mom Sarah? So it's like there is a very caring, loving side to you and everything. So the interesting thing, and I want everyone to know about you, is you need to you want to be willing to break through that with you. Because once you finally do, which I did, Sarah is an amazing person. She is like power woman all the way, biggest supporter. You've helped me throughout the years with everything. Like you talked in one of your podcasts about your journey with 2020. Your picture is one of my inspiration pictures, so it's just like so amazing. You just like take the time to get to know Sarah because fascinating things about you. Also, I wanted to touch on when people think, oh, she's really hard and tough and, I won't say forceful, but
Aggressive.
Okay. And that's an interesting thing too, because again, with you, yes, you can come off as aggressive, but ask why, right? Do people ask you, hey, and that's the thing that's like, to me is really so sad. Because you and I had a conversation about like some people say that about you. And it's like, well, did they ask you what's behind that? Because you always ask someone, you're so curious. And ever since I've known you, you're so curious. You're like, well, why did you don't go like, well, why did you say that? You're like, tell me why you felt that or this, or why did you think I said that? Has anyone said that to you?
No, not till now. I mean, I'm assuming that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this has been a journey. This is one of the cruxes of why I started working on myself. So back again to when I was growing up, I did not have a good upbringing. I had a lot of people in my life who were not nice to me and hurt me a lot in different ways. And the way that manifested was if I could just read a room well enough and understand all of the moving parts and know how people were feeling and know how they were going to react and like anticipate all of the different pieces that might come into play, I could keep myself safe. And that really manifested into me having this like hard armor. And so it left me really angry and really judgmental and really aggressive. And I felt like if I wasn't hard and swung first, then I would get hurt. And there was one point before we did Landmark where I was driving down the road and I used to have road rage so bad, and anybody who did anything, I'd be screaming at them and wanting to like pull them over and just really aggressive. And at one point, Chris and Emma were in the car and Emma was like, Mom, are you okay? I was like, yeah, that guy was just and she just like everything about her just wilted in that moment. And I recognized that that's not the kind of person that I want to be. And so, yeah, a lot of the work that I've done has been in unpacking what it is about where I came from that built that. And it was a superpower for a really long time. It was something that kept me safe and kept me aware and, made me feel like I was strong and powerful, but it was at the expense of other people. And that sucks. And it's also at the expense, like you said, of my connection with other people. And I started getting glimpses of, and you've mentioned it too, a few people have kind of said like, hey, that's really off-putting. And is that who you really want to be? And no, it's not. And I've found, as I've been improving myself and doing all of these different modalities, that I love people, and I love to figure out what makes them tick and what they're struggling with and how I can help make that better. And it shines in a lot of different areas, obviously, like teaching swimming lessons and being a lifeguard and saving people and, search and rescue and going out and making sure that people are okay. And teaching surfing and, like watching Grace do so well, just like made my heart sing that, she was so unsure and that I could give that to her, not only just give her the confidence to know that she can do it and do it well and be awesome at it, but that I can share that with you, and I can share my love of something that I am really passionate about and makes me feel good, and makes me feel strong, and makes me feel accomplished, and that I can hand that off to somebody else and they can get that too. So
That's awesome. We touched on that earlier with Chris, is like I was saying, how each of you create such a welcoming and safe space for people, because I told Grace, is my daughter, that I was coming to see you guys, and she's like, you're going to go see them? That's not fair. Because both, my son, my daughter Grace, and her boyfriend, you made them feel just so welcome and safe, and it's like they're just such cool people to be around. And it was just like, so it's anytime I say that, it's like, that's not fair, you get to see them. I was like, yes, I do. Okay, so I'm going to kind of sidetrack from a question. So what you talk about, all of the things that you want, lifeguard, search and rescue, all this stuff. What made you go into tech?
So I had graduated from Gonzaga with an English degree, and anybody who's graduated with an English degree hears, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to teach? And, in those times where I was aggressive and rough, I would say, well, what business doesn't appreciate the ability to read, write, and communicate? Like, what's your problem? But after I got out of college, I was working at a real estate appraisal firm as a secretary, and it wasn't anything long-term or anything, but we had this horrible IT guy. And I'm not kidding when I say horrible. This guy would bill by the hour, but he would stand around and like flirt with the staff and take forever and charge way too much. And, half the time, whatever he did didn't actually fix the problem. He literally at one point sent a bill for his time before he even showed up to do the work, which floored me. So I saw an opportunity, and I went to the boss and I said, hey, if I teach myself networking, can I be your tier 1 support? I'll do it for free. I'll do it as part of my job. And he said yes. And so I went out and I got certified in networking, and I started doing their IT work. And lo and behold, found out that their network was set up so terribly, but I learned so much. And then I started kind of messing around, pulling computers apart and seeing how they worked, just out of pure curiosity. But I was the kid growing up who was like pulling things apart to see how they work, and trying to put them back together. Like we tell a story in my house that at one point the dryer broke at our house, and there was no one there to fix it. And my mom, God bless her, is so unmechanically inclined and not tech savvy at all. And so she handed me a butter knife and just said, make it work. And I was like, and this was before, the internet or anything. Yeah. And so I just kind of started poking around and was like unscrewing things and pulling things out. And, you put things in different places, like this thing goes with this thing and I'll put it here. And this thing goes with this thing and I'll put it here. And I was able to fix the busted heating element on this dryer. Nice. And At one point, something went wrong with the television, one of those old RCA televisions, and I was messing around with it in the back, and I was holding a screwdriver, and I ended up touching the back of it, and unbeknownst to me, don't ever do this, by the way, there's a charged piece on the back of the tube that if you touch it, it holds a huge amount of electricity, enough to kill you. And I touched it with a screwdriver, and the whole thing zapped and blew out. And there was a charred hole, like literal hole, blown in part of the screwdriver. Where had I done it wrong and not, hit it with a screwdriver, I would have been blown through the wall and probably killed. So I was just kind of fearless. I would just take on whatever needed to be taken on. And sometimes I'd be able to fix things, and sometimes I'd make it worse. So I was always in that analytical place of like, I love solving puzzles. I love trying to figure out how the pieces fit together. And so I ended up working in that real estate appraisal firm for a while, and then also doing their IT. And they fired me because they said I wasn't taking enough ownership in my secretarial career. And, it wasn't a career, it was a job. So they obviously had some misplaced ideals, but I was devastated. I'd never been fired from a job before. And the same man that became my first husband, he said, well, I'm going over to Seattle for a CLE for continuing legal education as a lawyer. He said, you don't have a job. Why don't you come with me and we can just spend the weekend over there? And so went over on a Friday, and he was in we call it the Darth Vader building downtown. And in the same building, so he was at the CLE and I didn't have anything to do. I went to a networking office, like a computer networking office, and I tried to give him my resume, and they kind of looked at me and they're like, oh, honey, that's... You know some, but you don't know enough. But you do have a lot of great skills, because I showed him my resume. And so this wonderful guy that was working the front desk said, here, let me help you. And he said, there's a high-tech expo down at the Seattle Center. Give me your resume and I'll put it on nice paper. I'll give you, like 15, 20 copies of it. I still have the folder upstairs.
That's awesome.
And he said, go down there and, I wish you the best. And so I went down to the Seattle High Tech Expo with, a manila folder full of resumes. And I said to anyone that would listen, I can do anything if you teach me. I can do absolutely anything. And I literally said, I can be a brain surgeon if you teach me. I may not be the kind of brain surgeon you want working on your head, but I can do it. And I basically tap danced my way into a job as a systems engineer for a test lab in a contract position at Microsoft. And not too long after that, I got moved to full-time and became a lab manager, and moved from lab manager to a test engineer, and then up the ranks. And for a long time, I had a real chip on my shoulder about being fired in that company that basically said, you're not taking enough ownership in your secretarial career. And I want to go back at some point and thank them, because it was literally the best thing that's ever happened in my life. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm so blessed because of it.
And then that also shows a lot about you too. To know about you is tenacious.
Oh, to a fault.
But sometimes, yeah, but other times it's like, people admire it. So,
Yeah.
okay. I want to go back. You kind of touched on it a lot about your growing up. So you kind of already said what you wanted to be when you were growing up. But back then, what was your hope for yourself? Like, oh, by this age, I hope this.
This is a really weird question because I didn't have that. I'm one of, there's weird I'm one of 5 kids, 7 kids, or 8 kids, depending on who you talk to. But my core family is myself and my 4 siblings and my mom. Like I said, it was not an easy upbringing. And I'm the only one to this point who's gone to college and finished. And I don't know how it came to be, but I knew in my soul somewhere early on that college was the way to get out. College was a way to break out of the system that I was in. But I don't ever remember I don't remember having a vision of what my life would look like. I was more focused on what I was running away from than what I was running toward. So yeah, I was really dead set on making sure that I had the building blocks to get me away. I did always love to write though. That I remember I entered in I don't know if Washington still has it, but it's the Young Writers Conference. Mm-hmm. And the story that I wrote was about a girl who was, I can't remember if she was locked in a room or just told to stay there, but she basically creates this door in her wall that she crawls through into this other world and is able to escape. And that was like everything that I wanted was just that.
Well, that was the hope for yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what were your early influences or influencers, and have any of them remained?
My mom's mom and her husband, my granny and grandpa Ivan, were like literally lifesavers for me. Like I don't think I would be here without them. And unfortunately, they passed in 2015. They were a huge, huge influence on me. My granny was, she was salt of the earth, people. And she had a way of making sure that you felt taken care of. She used to call me her angel baby. Aww. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and see, you made me cry too. That means it's good questions. So yeah, I went to live with them for a year when I was in first grade. I was in a really bad situation. My mom's second husband all of her husbands were not great. But the second one was really mean to me. They had 2 kids of their own, and I was just kind of, my older brother and I were just kind of like a problem, trouble. And so at a certain point, it became untenable for me to be there anymore. And so I got shipped away to Granny's house in Montana, and I went to school there for a year. And yeah, they saved my life. And it was crazy because my grandfather had 3 children from his previous marriage, and some of them had children as well. And yet I was the favorite. And I wish I would have asked why. But maybe he saw that I just needed it. I needed a father figure, and I hadn't had anybody who was taking care of me in that aspect. And so, he taught me how to drive a tractor, and he taught me, all kinds of different things, taught me how to build things with wood and tools, and showed me cars and all kinds of different stuff. And he's the reason that I still, to this day, the smell of diesel and dirt, just like it does something to me that brings me home. My grandma VJ was my dad's mom. She was a huge influence as well. She was strict, but she was fun. And she held a very, very special place in my life, like in terms of words. So she was really big on spelling, grammar. You use the right words to say the right things. You say what you mean what you say. And that was a really solid lesson in my life too. But she also, my grandparents owned a laundromat. And so in this laundromat, it was a big rectangle space, and the dryers were on the outside, and there was this bank of washers on the inside, and what it created was a big oval ring with a linoleum floor. And so we would all, like, everybody would do their work and finish up whatever tasks needed to be done, and we would all hustle so that we could close down the shop, shutter the blinds, turn on air supply, and roller skate.
That's awesome.
And so we just had our own roller skating rink in this place, and she made it really fun. And so, she was a good balance of stern and real, but still like joyful and fun at the same time. And I think there's a lot of that rubbed off on me too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because you're always correcting all of us on like the right grammar and all that stuff. It makes me laugh. Okay.
Yeah. And I had a really crazy realization about my mom. I don't know if I ever told you this, but not too long ago, so when one grows up in a tough environment and there's a common factor, which was my mother, I spent a lot of time being really angry and really disappointed about the way that my family, my siblings and I were raised. And again, had a huge chip on my shoulder and somewhat justifiably so. And she'll admit to that as well. But I was laying in bed one Saturday, probably not even a year ago, and I was thinking about all of the things in my life that I'm grateful for, because, man, I'm grateful for this life and what we've built. It's amazing. And I sat there and I thought, where was my mom when she was my age? What was going on in her life? And I realized, like, she had 5 kids from 3 different men who not only, like, made a vow to love her forever, but didn't, and spent a lot of effort actively working against her and trying to hurt her and trying to hurt us to hurt her. And I thought about that and I was like, you know what? But even with all of that, she got up every day. She went to work. She often worked from like early in the morning till late at night. She made sure we were fed. She made sure that we were schooled and educated. She made sure that we had what we needed. We had a roof over our head. We were never homeless. And I was like, oh, holy shit. My mom is a superhero. Like she kept us going, even though I'm sure it was agonizing at times. And she has battled all kinds of demons in her life. And still managed to show up for us and make sure that we were taken care of. And in the face of that, every single one of my brothers and sisters in my core family are warriors and like stalwart, strong, powerful warriors. And that is all because of her and what she built. And so, like, 5 years ago, I never would have said that she would have been in this list, and she most certainly is. But yeah, I like my older brother is another one, my brother Chris, because I have a brother Chris and a husband Chris, which is kind of weird. But he's very much like me. He's very analytical. He's very like by the book, like step by step, very, very intelligent. And he upheld a very, very high standard for him and myself that has, he was also one of the ones that, like, we rebuilt an engine in a car and had no understanding of, he knew a little bit more. Well, he knew quite a bit more about what he was doing than I did, but like we would just tackle these projects and come hell or high water, we'd figure it out because we had to, because, if you don't have a car, you can't go to work and, that kind of thing. And so he has a fortitude and a level of intellect and problem solving skills that I have aspired to emulate my whole life.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next 2 questions kind of go together. But so throughout your journey growth, why did you make the changes or the pivot you did? And when you made those decisions to make those changes, what were the non-negotiables then and now? Didn't he say the same?
Well, I mean, I started on this journey because I wasn't happy about who I was. I wasn't happy about, like when you walk around thinking that you're smarter than everyone else and feeling like you have to make sure that everybody knows that you're the smartest person in the room, it's really alienating. And it's really lonely. And so, not only that, but just feeling that anger and frustration and aggression all the time, it makes you sick. Like it made me, and I didn't even, it was like I woke up at that point when I saw the look on Emma's face, and how she was experiencing me. It shook me, legitimately shook me. And I went, oh God, I don't want to do that. And so, I realized, respect is non-negotiable. Love is non-negotiable. Compassion is non-negotiable. And it was as much compassion for others as it was compassion for myself. Because I'll tell you, the voice in my head used to be really, really mean to me. And, it's funny to think back to whose voice that actually is when you actually listen to it. And I've not only allowed, but have welcomed in a lot of mean voices in my life over the years. But as I've overcome them, that feeling of triumph, my who knows if this is going to come back and bite me in the ass at some point, but my mom's third husband, my youngest brother's dad, it was rough growing up with him. He was the kind of guy who grounded me for a week for walking up 2 steps at a time, grounded me for a week for leaving the cap off the toothpaste, grounded me for an entire summer for accidentally chipping his dresser when I was putting away his laundry, that kind of guy. And so he terrorized my older brother and I when we were growing up, and it was really awful. And I remember at one point when I was probably in my early 20s, I was taking a kickboxing class at the Spokane Armory, and I had come out of that class and I was, hyped and feeling good. And I still get that feeling, which I love. But I ran across him on the street and he came up to me and he was talking to me, and I looked at him and I realized I could kick this guy's ass. I could take him. And when I realized that and I felt it in my bones, it changed everything, where I didn't have to be afraid of him anymore. I didn't have to feel like I had to guard myself away. I could just go for it. And what's funny is my mom and I were just having a conversation, and just this last weekend, and apparently he still thinks to this day that the reason that I am the way I am is because of him.
Do you want to tell him otherwise?
Yeah, you can suck it, Jerry. So anyway, yeah, it was in spite of him that I became what I did, because he would tell me on the regular, you're not going to amount to anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that you talked about too, 5 years ago or whatever, and you were the negative stuff or smartest person in the room. I remember, and I can picture it right now. I think it was you, Chris, myself, I think Scott, our friend Scott, was there. Mm-hmm. Anyways, you were talking about a situation and we were telling you, hey, this is how it's being perceived. And you're like, but I have to be strong. I have to be this way. And you wouldn't listen to any of us. And
Yep.
we're like, okay,
Sounds right.
yeah. And you're just like, that's what I have to do. And it's just like, and so like, again, seeing you make these changes and realizations is so great because and the thing too, I want to say to you is like your grandparents, I see it. There's something in you that you're worth it. Mm-hmm. It's like, and you know me, it's like, I invest in people that I know that there's something about them that I want them to see how cool they are.
Yeah, and me too. That's my favorite thing when I see their eyes light up and see themselves the way I see them.
Yeah, and so we've been trying to do that for you for so long, and it finally happened because, and that's the thing too, and like, you just want to take that time to invest in people, and that's what we wanted to do for you. Is like, eventually it's gonna happen.
Yep.
And so it's so great that you're here now, you know what I mean? So.
And I'm so much happier and so much more at peace. And I feel like I was trying to prove it to other people, but the one person I wasn't proving it to was myself, that I was worth it.
Yep, you absolutely are. Okay, so so I asked Chris this one too, is like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, so I got to cheat on this one because I heard the question when you asked him. But I, more than anything, I want to leave this world in a better place than I found it. I want to empower people to be their best selves. I want to be. It's funny. I just got goosebumps again. I really want people to see themselves the way that I see them, because I see such amazing things in people, and you, like, the amount of love and care that you have for people, and you're so damn smart. Like, pretty much anytime we have a question about your area of expertise, you're just like, yep, do, 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 do. And I'm just like, how do you remember that stuff? That's crazy. How do you know all that? And you're always taking into consideration other people, and especially when I was stomping around like a petulant child, that was so foreign to me. But seeing my employees and how I can help them reach their goals. And I don't give a flying fig if they leave me and my organization, as long as they're like, I'm supporting them moving toward what means something to them. There's something weird that happens when you save someone's life. And I've done it almost a handful of times in my life, that you recognize how precious it is, how each person fits in and how important they are. And anytime that I see, like, Emma's got some friends that she's had over the years whose parents haven't been the nicest, and it breaks my heart, and I just want to, I take them all in, and they're my kids, and they know that they can come anytime, and I'll make sure they're fed and loved and snuggled, and they call me mom and they give me hugs. And I didn't have that growing up, and I want to have that. I want to offer that to the world. And so that's why we, started this podcast, and why we're working on this wellness empire is I finally, after all of this work and all of this time, I feel awesome about myself. I feel awesome about my life. I feel awesome about my job. I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders, and I'm really loving it. And I want other people to have that. And sometimes I get pushy, and I'm sorry. And I want people to see it. Because it feels so good, especially in such stark contrast to how shitty I felt in my life for so long. And I just, a lot of struggle, and a lot of that struggle we create for ourselves. We don't realize it, but we do. One of the biggest gifts that I ever got was, the work that we did with Landmark, and that moment that I realized in that first seminar that I could set down all of my baggage and not carry it forward anymore. Like, all of the stuff that happened to me that I had created stories about and, told myself all this stuff, I didn't have to carry that anymore. And I want other people to feel light too.
That's awesome. I mean, there's so many things too that you've taught me, like just, how the advice you give to Emma, I think about that and I'm like, okay, I apply it with my kids sometimes. It's like, oh, look how she approached that situation. This will be great right here. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's, man, the struggles I had. Sorry, honey. The struggles I had with Chris early on, because he grew up in a very patriarchal, like domineering type of family where you do what I say, you don't question. And if you don't do what I say, I yell at you and scare the piss out of you until you do what I say. And so he came into this relationship with Emma being his daughter, and he was trying to throw that around. And I've had a few times that we've had some stern conversations, but a lot of times I would just look at him and go, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's your goal here? And he would be like, whoa, what do you mean? And I'd be like, well, you're dealing with a person. You're not dealing with a kid. Like, how would you ever talk to another person out in the world the way that you're talking to her? Would you ever have those level of expectations for someone else? Well, no. Like, well, why are you doing it to her? Like, she's a person. And so I've never spoken baby talk to her. I've never lied to her. I've never, BS'd her. I've always, age appropriate answers, but real answers to real questions. And I treat her like a person and she feels it. And so, if you're treating someone differently because you have a power dynamic with them, that's wrong.
I think it's great too. That's like you talk about with Chris. It's like a love-hate thing that everybody has about you, because you bring I won't give exactly examples, but anything like there's things I've talked to you about.
I mean, you can.
You just give it right to me. You'll be like, what are you trying to accomplish there? And you stop, people stop in their tracks like, Jesus, Sarah, God, you're making me look at myself, I
know.
But it's a great thing because you're like, I hate that you just made me do that, but I love you for it,
Which is really funny because I just got called on that literally on Monday.
Oh.
So one of my mentees, I'm asking questions and she goes, man, you always ask the hard questions, but you do it in a nice way.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, thank you.
But yeah, they're so profound because literally myself and other people I've seen just stop and be like, yes, okay, thank you. Okay, I have one last question for you. I don't know if you heard it early when I was telling her.
Nope, I plugged my ears.
Okay. If you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell her?
Oh. Wow. I don't wish away any of the things that have happened in my life because I'm where I am at because of all of the things that I've been through. So I wouldn't tell her to change a damn thing, but I would tell her, see, now you're going to make me cry again. I would tell her that she is loved, and more capable than she ever could imagine. And that everything that we fight through gets us closer to an amazing life that feels so good and is going to help so many people feel good too.
I need to make you cry, but thank you. And I hope this discussion brought everybody closer to you like they did with Chris, because you two are both such amazing people. And seeing the whole thing, again, like I said, so proud. And people just want to get to know you. And people just want to be around both of you because you're so amazing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I love this idea. And I'm so happy that you brought it up. And as I sit here and leaking.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that weren't on your list that you've always wanted to know? Because I'm an open book and I'm happy
I
to.
know you are. The other questions I have for both you and Chris at the same time.
Okay.
But okay, let's see. What could I say? One last thing. I know. What's something like surprising that we haven't touched on or secret about you that you want the world to know?
See, these are the things other people mention, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there is that. And then I just forget because it's just been part of my life. Well, I love to bake. One of my favorite things to do. I love to cook and I love to bake for people that I love. One of my all-time favorite things is to see the look on people's face when they eat something that I make that is just incredible. And so I got, our friend Jim gave me a sourdough starter, and our neighbors 2 doors down are absolutely wonderful. They rented us the house while we were rebuilding this one, and just love them to death. Delia and Martine are the best, and Kimberly and Abby too. Just a wonderful family. And so during COVID, I got into baking bread, and I would make a batch of dough and I would bake 2 loaves of bread, and I would keep 1 loaf for us and I would take 1 loaf over to the neighbors. And Martine, the dad, he would basically like take it over warm. So it was like fresh out of the oven, and he would like disappear and cut it all up and eat as much of it as he could before he had to share it with anybody.
That's awesome.
But just the pure joy that I saw on his face when he was like, oh, bread, that I made with my own hands. And just, it's literally just water, flour, salt, and, a little bit of olive oil. And yeah, it makes something that makes somebody so happy. And they know that I built it with love.
Oh, so, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's all I have for you now. And then we'll bring Chris in.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. And we're all back together.
Yes. And now I have both Chris and Sarah here to interview
yes,
together.
You do.
Because, funny story, I was there when they met. Mm-hmm. So
that fateful night.
Yes. Actually, what happened, funny thing, we dared Chris to walk up to Sarah to see how far he could get and see if he could get his phone number. Actually, one of the people in our group actually knew Sarah as well. Yep. Now, our take was no way she was going to even engage with him or give him any kind of time. But lo and behold, she did.
Such a lack of faith in my charm.
Maybe I just had low standards.
Well, because the funny thing is, we all had bets that it would be a week, and you would be like, I'm over him. No. Because Chris Party Guy, solid Sarah, So I was like, so this is great to see and interesting because how it all began. Okay.
Well, and did you know that I was on a date with somebody else?
No, I did not know that piece.
Yeah.
Who I knew and was playing league pool with at the time.
Uh-huh.
Interesting spin to the story. I love it. Okay. So, through all of the whole thing, back then to the different stages, I have a couple questions on that.
Yep.
I asked you each about your non-negotiables. When you went early stages to now, what were your non-negotiables with each other?
Ooh, early stages, like non-negotiables?
I don't really know if there were any.
I didn't really have any non-negotiables. I was like,
yeah, you were.
I was trying to have a good time.
Non-negotiables for me were you do not hurt my baby.
Yeah.
Like that. And I didn't let him meet Emma for a year. We dated for a year before I even let him meet her. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, from the very beginning, I was very clear about the fact that you mess with my baby and I will rip you to pieces.
Non-negotiables for me, like I legit wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I wasn't looking for a wife. And I absolutely was not looking for an older woman with a child. So I was not expecting to get a hook so deeply sunk into my cheek so rapidly. So,
yeah.
we figured out we tore each other up a little bit through the negotiables over the years, but finally came to a good, solid understanding of what worked for both of us.
Yeah. And yeah, honesty is another one that has morphed over the time. I didn't realize how important that was until we had kind of worked through what we've worked through. But yeah, like I said, respect, compassion, a willingness to learn, to be better and not just stick with the status quo because that's what's easy or what is comfortable. Those have all become non-negotiable. Honestly, attraction, like I'm probably more attracted to you now than I have ever been in my life.
I want to tell the joke, but I won't.
I think I know what
My
Emma.
nipples are hotter for you than yeah. It's just a silly old joke.
Yeah, because one of them's in the mashed potatoes and one of them's in the coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I had no idea that integrity could ever be considered sexy.
Oof, yeah, man.
But yeah, once I got that sorted out, like, yeah, I mean, we've always had a great dynamic. But yeah, it really tuned up the fire when all of a sudden I had nothing to hide and wasn't lying about shit. And she's like, yeah, look at my phone, like do whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because when we first started hanging out, we'll call it hanging out.
Coloring.
When we first started coloring. He said, I'm not looking for anything serious. And I said, I'm not either. And he said, but we could still spend time together, and not get attached. And I was like, you think you can handle that?
It wasn't quite that simple. I said we could just fool around, and this and that, and don't have to be attached. I'm like, I can do it. Can you? And I was like, that was the first time a woman just like pulled me to the wool right on it. It was just like, can you do that? Like, I don't know if I can.
Yeah, because I was not interested in being tied down at that point. I was sowing my wild oats, and honestly, a lot of it, again, I don't know how much of this is going to blow back, but when you leave a relationship that is really toxic, one of the first things that I did was I needed to prove that it wasn't me, and so yeah, I made my way through a few individuals in that process, just trying to, boost my ego and tell myself that I wasn't the problem.
I think it's funny too, because you said, you both, we weren't looking for anything. Can you handle it? Can you handle it? Funny thing is, I can't remember how far into the relationship you guys were. And you were like, she told me, she's not going to do it, but I'm falling for this girl. And I don't know, but I have to because she told me not. So it was really funny. It's so cute. Because you're like, I gotta stay true. I can't fall for her.
Yeah.
Did. So
How'd that work out?
Turns out not particularly well.
Well, and as I have come to find out
beautifully.
Exactly. Over the years. Yeah. The women in my family, the Gaddy women, have an amazing power of we're basically sirens.
Womanizer. Brittany is coming to mind.
Yep. I'm a manizer.
I think you told me this last week that Emma jokes that you guys are both like, oh my gosh, gross PDA, but also relationship goals. And that is absolutely so true.
Yep.
Because it's always like, oh my God, you guys, blah. But then it's like, oh my God, look at you guys, So it's so funny. And I think you guys will probably disagree because you were in it, but watching it, I think the greatest gift of your relationship is you call each other out, but it's your willingness to work through it and learn and grow together. Like some people just be like, I know there was points when you guys were like, fuck yeah, I'm out, right?
Oh yeah.
But you guys both paused and it's like, no, this is worth it. We're going to figure it out. How did you guys, was it you each like saying, okay, no, we're going to work this out. This is going to happen. Or was you had to bring someone along more so than others?
Well, I would say that in those moments of turmoil and difficulty, and Emma was a huge piece of it. And I know, for both of us, like she had already gone through her dad and I divorcing, and it was hard. And she was only 2 when we split up, but it made an impact. And so there were a lot of times that I sat there and just thought, like, how am I going to do this to her? Like, how am I going to break her heart again? Because, because we're 2 grown-ass adults who can't get our shit together. So yeah, like she's a big reason why we're still together and going strong.
Yeah, I think she was a huge. There were absolutely points, and I've been honest with Sarah as about this, where there were times where I was like, if it wasn't for fucking with her little world,
Yeah,
I would have cut and run. But yeah, it was awesome that she was able to like buoy us through those, because we had what I would have considered a great relationship, honestly, in so many respects. To go through the grief, to struggle through the stuff that we have, it can be so much better, folks. Like, if you can come together, like grow together and get through your bullshit, and really recognize the value of what each of you bring to the table, and really look at each other as equals and life partners and invest deeply in each other, like whatever you thought a great relationship was before, like it's nothing.
Well, and the man that you see is when you meet Chris, you feel his largesse. You see, like, you can feel the potential, and you can feel like, if you can just figure out how to get around some of the more prickly parts, like there's like, he's my favorite, like between he and Emma, my favorite people in the entire world. And so like, there were a lot of times that it would have been a lot easier to just shut my mouth and be, like have animosity and frustration and let that build up. Where instead I worked really hard at getting through. And so one of the things that I've built as a superpower over the years is I can draw analogies that make him get a lot of things. And, whether it's cars or computers or, there's a lot to be said for having a lot of similar interests so that we can communicate in analogies and metaphors. But there's definitely something special there that I can sit down and be like, hey, do you remember how you felt when this happened? And he'll be like, yeah. I'd be like, you made me feel like that just now.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great, but those moments where you're like, I'm feeling so entitled about how I'm feeling, and then she breaks it down and explains, like, helps me to feel what I made her feel, and it's just like, oh, shit, that's not what I was trying to do at all. Like,
yeah, and that a lot of that came from, like my first marriage and feeling like I couldn't say what I wanted to say to be me. And so, like, one of the things that I said to him early on was, I'm not interested in issuing ultimatums, but this is what I need for you to be in my life. And you can either choose to show up or not. But, like, this, I cannot have this in this world that I've created with Emma.
yeah.
I think, too, it's like, important for the world to know that's listening. You both were not, there were certain points where you were both on different stages.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Right.
Many.
So, like, there was times where, Chris was really, not high, but like
Not
good.
too.
Was like,
As it turns
good
out.
point, and you were not, and
Yep.
vice versa. And seeing how each other support one another to get like the realization has also been really cool to see.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm going to go back and then I'm going to come back to this. So when did you know that each other was the one?
In love with, or the one?
The
Yeah.
one to marry.
Ooh, to married.
Well,
I didn't know she was the one until after I married her. On like,
yeah,
I was in love with her.
Kind of, yeah.
I was in love with her, but
Yeah.
I honestly had long ago accepted that it's like there's no such thing as a perfect partner, and because I didn't see any perfection in myself, but at a point we worked through some of my shit in my past, and she stuck by my side through that, and that was when it was like, oh, like, one, I'm actually worthy of love. Somebody is showing me that, which was hard and amazing. And then like being like, oh, this is really fucking important. Like I'm turning around and I'm investing in this. That was, there was a moment, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, something like that. We had a come to Jesus moment, if you will. And, that was when I was like, all in, like, I'm not going anywhere. I don't care what happens, like death do us part, you know? And even then I have questions. I don't know if death's going to do it. So,
Yeah. And it's the same for me that when I saw him buy in and invest and stop sabotaging himself with all of this stupid bullshit that he was doing, because someone can't give you their everything if they're not everything for themselves. Like if I'm not whole, then I can't be whole for a relationship. And so, yeah, it was probably 5 years into our marriage, and love him to death and was willing to fight tooth and nail. But, that situation was when I knew that like we are our ride or dies.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting you say that you guys didn't realize it right away, because when you guys did like get engaged and married, everybody was like, oh yeah, this makes total sense, So that's interesting that you guys were it made sense.
I don't think we knew. Like, I don't think either one of us was mature enough to know what that looked like at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
just like, yeah, like we were in love and like stuff was as good as it could possibly be. Like, yeah, obviously, like we want to spend our lives together. We're going to get married. Like, hopefully it works out.
Boy, and we made each other miserable.
we worked each other over quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it would have been neat, I guess, to have had that moment ahead of time. But it's still awesome that it occurred where it's just like, oh, there's no question anymore. Like there were a lot of questions for a lot of years. It's like, because it was always, oh, like marriages fall apart, these things happen, whatever. And I still subscribe to that for a lot of folks, but I do feel like there's a point that you get to where it's like, oh, I don't care what happens. Like,
yeah,
I'm not out.
Well, and we like literally had the conversation and said, all right, this is it. Like, let's get everything out on the table. Let's talk about all of the skeletons, all of the yuck, all of the stuff. And then at the end of it, if you and I both agree that we can move forward and do this, like we're paving over the escape hatch. We're never...
No more exit.
Nope. Mm-hmm. Like this is it. But it was explicit. And we said, like, we are literally paving over the escape hatch. There's no exit here.
That's good. And then the thing too, like from my perspective and others, because I've heard him say it, like I've been with both of you through your heart, I've heard. And like Chris and I joke all the time, like he'll have conversations with me and I'll be like, you said what? You need to go apologize back to her right now.
Again, thank you for being my therapist over the years.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you are totally in the wrong, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, like, you stop and think, and like both of you have said, like, I don't know if I can do it. And there's like, you think, and I'm like, there is nobody else for each other,
Nope.
right?
True.
You're just, and I hate to say the word perfect because nobody's perfect. But,
Oh, no, we're perfect for each other.
But you are. Mm-hmm. It's like,
Yep.
it just works, and it's the weirdest. I don't want to say weird in a negative way, but it's like you can't imagine either one of you with somebody else.
No.
So
No.
it's very cool.
Yeah.
It's fun.
He's my favoritist, my flavoritist.
Other than the fiery redheaded.
Well, there are different categories, right? So, but yeah, I was the first one to say I love you
It's true.
in the stabbing
In the
cabin.
stabbing cabin.
Are you
Yes.
serious? You're more sappy than she is.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it for a long time, but I was like afraid I was going to scare her away. So I held out.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I wanted to show her that I was the man and make her do it first. Really, is what it came down to. I can't even keep a straight face to say.
Okay, that's the thing. We already told people that she's more the kid than you are.
We all know.
Let's just say one of us came to the relationship with 27 dresses, Stomp the Yard, and The Notebook.
Hey, these are all great movies.
And
They are very great.
just saying.
it wasn't me.
Oh, well, I guess that's less flattering. Damn it.
That's okay. So, I mean, we're making it. You guys are like, oh, utopia, whatever. Yes, but there are challenges when you work through like pet peeves or whatever. How do you work? So, like, what how do you work through it? Like, there's certain things about people you can't change.
Yep.
So, did you make like, okay, I'm just gonna like, that's just who they are. I need to figure out how I'm gonna respond to that. Or did you realize, all right, that person has to change in order for this to work?
What's funny about pet peeves, for me at least, is once, at least, like I said, for me, I feel like once that background animosity is gone, pet peeves aren't pet peeves anymore. They're just funny little things that your partner does.
Idiosyncrasies.
Yeah. And so they actually become things that, like, I know about him that other people don't know. Like, when he reads, he moves his mouth and reads out loud quietly to himself. Or like, all of these little things, like I can spill absolutely anything on myself, these things that we know about each other. But yeah, there are some things that it's weird because I could feel the dissonance when things weren't good and he was being dishonest and shady. I could feel it, but I couldn't prove it. And so, like, if that feeling were still there, it wouldn't work. And so it really comes down to, him and me both investing in honesty and integrity above all else. And like, say it kindly, say it with respect, but say it and don't hold it in. Don't hold yourself back because you're worried about what someone's going to think. And he gave me the space to be able to say whatever's on my mind. And I know he'll listen, and I know he may not agree, and it may take a while for him to come around to like hear me. But I know that he's listening.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the key of it is you have to be open and honest about things that you like or dislike about your partner or appreciate or don't appreciate. Being able to share to step one, but as the receiver for step two, you have to be able to maturely detach your emotional state from it. It's like, is this thing really me? Is it something that maybe I would like to change anyways? Because some things it's just like, hey, this is who I am, and I'm not willing to sacrifice who I am. But other things it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that occurred to you or others that way. And it's like, oh, I don't want to occur that way, and I'm going to modify that. But just being able to have really open and honest conversations and work together. Because look, if either one of you in a relationship is unhappy,
It's going to show.
you've got to like, if you don't address it, animosity builds up. And then I run into like so many people we know where it's just like, folks have roommates. And I hate to see that for people. It's like, I want people to have what we have. It's fucking fun.
Yeah,
it
it
is.
He's my best friend.
We're idiot kids. Yeah, exactly. And it's
You're idiot kid. Yes, you guys are.
Oh, totally. Some of the dumb shit we've done.
woo. But that is a thing. Is things that other people can't bring to my attention because I get offended or bothered or just don't want to hear. She can bring it to my attention. And like she said, sometimes I don't initially receive the message well, but I respect what she has to say so much. I'm like, okay. And I can just be honest with her now. Like, I'm not ready to process that right now. Like, I'm going to put it in the back and water that seed and we'll see what happens. And then we, continue to come around to that conversation. And sooner or later, we come to some type of common ground about, something's going to change or whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
anytime you've got to hide anything.
Yeah. You're holding yourself back from being able to connect. Yeah. And one of my favorite things is that, sometimes you go off the rails. Like sometimes I go off the rails and the way that I'm feeling is not in alignment with what's going on. And I can just look at him and go, look, I know I'm being crazy. I have no idea why I'm feeling like this, but just like I'm feeling this way and I can't explain it and just deal with it.
Yeah, which is great. It's such a great gift, as well as we both do this to each other as well. Like I'm being super emotional right now and like I'm invested in being pissed off, for instance, as an example. And it's like,
I'm angry and you can't make me to stop.
And I don't want you to fix it or help me. Like I want you to just listen. And as a man, that's a really hard thing to like, I'm Mr. Fix It all the time.
Oh, and I'm a fixer too.
Exactly. We both are. But to have those moments where you're just like, you tell your partner what you need. Like, I need to bitch and I want somebody to commiserate with me. Like, oh, okay, I can do that. Like, she said, what? No, she didn't, that bitch. Versus the common response of like, well, if this is going wrong in your life, honey, we need to do this and this and this.
Why don't you just blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just swallow your face? Pull your lip over your head and swallow, sir.
There we go.
That's so funny. Okay. Last question, statement I have for you both. Okay. What do you hope Emma says about both of you, what you've taught her? Who wants to go first?
For me, I really hope that we have shown her what a healthy, fulfilling relationship looks like, because it's not easy to find these days. And, I didn't have great models of it growing up, and I want her to see that. And, as an extension of that, his parents are still together and absolutely in love and adorable, and they drive each other crazy, but they have a common goal and they care a lot. And so, yeah, I want her to know how good she can have it and how worthy she is to have it and how capable she is to have it.
Very good.
Love and empathy. Oh, and one last, undying belief in herself.
Yes.
I want her to know that the only reason she won't succeed at something is because the voice in her head is telling her she can't.
Yep.
As long as she believes in herself and sets her mind to something, she's got it.
Yeah.
And just be nice to people. Just be awesome all the time. Like, you don't know what people are going through. Maybe that person's mom is dying. Maybe they have crippling anxiety. Who knows? Just like give people the benefit of the doubt. Stay safe, but just be awesome to everybody. It improves the room mood always.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yay!
Alrighty.
So thank you both for letting me do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I did want to say one more thing because I think it's valuable. One of the things that we've realized that we do for each other is what we call slingshotting.
yes.
So I get to a higher level of understanding of something, whether it's computers or, energy or whatever it is that we're going through. And instead of just rocketing off, I reach back and I pick him and I huck him forward. And then he does the same for me. And so it's like a cartwheel and we just keep pushing each other forward.
Pulling each other up.
Yeah.
I like that. I was going to say, you two are each other's biggest champions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's always the thing. It's like, if your person's down and out and struggling, cool. That's when you need to stand up and be strong and help them. And once they're back up, at some point you're going to be down and out and they'll,
Yep.
you can always help each other be better.
And if you step on your person when they're down, likelihood is they're going to return the favor someday. Mm-hmm. But if you're crawling in their lap going, okay, how do we move forward? They'll do the same for you.
That's awesome. We need to both know I love you to death. So again, thank you. And I sacrificed my hair for you.
Yep.
That is amazing.
Thank you. And this was awesome. I love this. This is the best idea.
It was good. So hopefully you all got to know them better.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yay.
Love you all lots.
Okay, bye.
Bye.